All right, so for this lesson, we're gonna start learning about perpendicular lines. So let's remember what that means. I have an example here. You guys can just sketch it. You don't have to do a perfect graph in your notebook. But I want you to learn about how do we find the equations for perpendicular lines when we're looking at a graph. So what's the thing to know about perpendicular lines is they make a perfect right angle, it's called. Sorry, my handwriting. Let me make that better. Sorry, they make a perfect right angle, which is basically like a perfect corner, right? That's what we show with that little symbol right there. So we can see that this graph I have here is giving you an example of some perpendicular lines, and we want to learn about their slopes. So let's start with the slope of the red line. So I'll just look over it here. The slope of the red line, it's going over 3 up 1. So my red line slope is over 3 up 1. Now let's look at the purple line, or we'll call it blue. It's going to be a similar pattern, but it's going to be flipped. So if I look at my blue line, it's over 1, down 3. So what are these two slopes? So the red line slope is going to be positive 1/3. So it's going over 1 up 3, over 1 up 3. That's the rise and the run. What is my blue line slope? So my blue line, I can see it has a negative slope because it's going downhill, and it's going to be -3 over 1. So when I have perpendicular lines, their slope ratios are flipped. So the key word to write down here, which is going to seem a little weird, it's going to be a new word you haven't heard before. These slopes are opposite reciprocals. So what does that mean? So the opposite means it's always going to be, if one is positive, the other one is negative. So opposite means they're always going to switch, positive, negative. So we can see here we have one downhill line and one uphill line. And then reciprocal is when we flip the rise and the run. So another way to write that down that might make more sense, and this is a good thing to write in your notes. So the slopes of perpendicular lines are opposites. So it's always one will be positive and the other one will be negative. And the rise and run are flipped. So let's look at a few examples. Take a minute. I recommend pausing the video and making sure you have this copied down really clearly, even if you didn't copy down that whole example, because we're going to use this information to do some example problems right now. So let's start with our first example. Okay. So the problems that we're going to work on now, I'm going to give you a line. So you can see I'm giving you the red line, and I'm giving you a point on the line. And we're trying to find the perpendicular line through the point. So going through that little point right here. So I'm always going to start by finding my slope. So let me just draw a bunch of slope triangles to help me get started to see what my rise and run are. So I can see my rise and run are, I'm going over 1, up 4. I like to write it like that just to help me remember. So over 1, up 4. So my slope of that line is 4 over 1. Obviously, it's positive. I'm just going to write all that down. I know that just is equal to 4, but I also need to write down that it's positive and it's going over 1, up 4. So what that means is for my perpendicular line, to make that perfect corner, I'm going to go over 4, down 1. So let's start at my point that I have given to me, and let's go over 4, down 1. And I can go the other direction, over 4. And this will give me my perpendicular line. Oh, let me do a ruler so I can make it nice. Okay, so we see that if we perfectly flip my slope triangle, reverse the slope triangle. So instead of going over 1 up 4, we're going over 4 down 1 and make it negative. That gets me that perfectly perpendicular corner that I wanted right here. So now I have this perpendicular line. So I guess if we want it, we can write the equation, but really I just want you guys to practice graphing the line for now. So this equation would be -1/4 x plus 17. We'll talk about how to find the equation algebraically later, but for now I want you to just find it using the graph. So let me set up one more example. This time I want you guys to take a minute and try, where's my other example? Sorry. Oh, I guess that's all I have. Okay, so let's take a minute and I want you guys to graph this line really accurately in your notebook so you can do one really good example. So let me show you how to start graphing this line. So we're gonna start with the y-intercept at 5, and we're gonna go over 3 up 2. So take a minute, pause the video if you need to, and draw yourself some axes and start graphing this line really accurately. So we're going over 3 up 2, over 3 up 2. So get a nice precise graph. And then we're gonna try to figure out the perpendicular line. Okay, so this line has a slope of +2/3. That's my rise and my run. Sorry, so let me label it so we can remember. Rise and run. So to find my perpendicular line, I know it needs to be a negative slope. So for my perpendicular line, I need to make the slope negative. So I know I'm gonna have a negative slope. And I'm gonna flip my rise and my run. So it's gonna be -3/2. Or in other words, it's gonna be over 2 down 3. So let me start at the point they've marked, over 2 down 3. Over 2 down 3. And now if I can go backwards, I can just go over 2 up 3 to go backwards, and I'm gonna get my perpendicular line that way. And you can see again, it makes this nice perfect corner. So make sure you have at least a couple good examples written down. The slope, so look at how the slopes relate to each other. So these two slopes are called opposite reciprocals. I'm just gonna erase this part so it's not confusing. So these two slopes are called opposite reciprocals. And all the word reciprocal means is that means we're just flipping and one turns positive and one turns negative. So if you write anything down, make sure you have that example, because tomorrow in class we're going to be graphing a bunch of perpendicular lines using these opposite reciprocal slopes.